Today is the 4th of July, Independence Day in America. It's a day where we wave the Star-Spangled Banner, eat a few extra hot dogs, and give ourselves permission to handle an irresponsible amount of explosives. But what are we really celebrating? The patriot may claim that we are celebrating the courage of the little guy, that gutsy group of colonies who took on a global empire and won. The skeptic may claim that we are celebrating a handful of wealthy men in white powdered wigs who decided they didn't want to pay taxes to their government. But the idealist might claim that we are celebrating the birth of a government who asserted that all men are created equal and endowed by their creator with inalienable rights, and then they battled a tyrant to claim those rights. Meanwhile, the realist might point out the irony of the birth of a nation who touts freedom as its own invention while holding human beings as slaves for its own profit. You might agree with some of these statements, you might disagree with others, but it's hard to argue that all of these statements have truth and validity in some sense. So how exactly should we celebrate today? Well, I had a mentor who asked me a question. He asked, what is the first gift that God gave to mankind? At first, I was unsure of how to respond to that. When God created us, He gave us lots of things. He gave us a body with which to move, language with which to speak, dominion over creation, with which to responsibly steward all God has made. But my mentor looked on, and what he said was the first gift that God gave us was liberty. That is free will, freedom to live and to move and to have our being. Indeed, God even granted us the freedom to choose Him in His infinite glory or not. God decided He would not create mindless robotic beings with no capacity to think or decide or have emotions. Instead, God, who Himself is the ultimate truth in the universe, created beings with the capacity to not choose that ultimate truth. And this notion is perplexing because for those who know the rest of the story, man and woman used this God-given freedom to choose poorly. They followed the words of a deceiver rather than the words of God, and the consequences thereof ensued: pain, toil, and death through all generations. So why would God risk the defilement of His creation by giving us liberty of all things? Surely humans in our faultiness cannot be trusted to decide what is right, what is true, and what is good. In fact, many throughout history have agreed that the risk of granting liberty is not a risk worth taking. Instead of extending this divine gift to others, societies have turned to domination and power to exert control over others, restraining thought and creativity, and forcing ideology and religion on the subjects of their empires. But God chose otherwise. The Godhead said, "Let us make mankind in our image." That is, with the ability to decide, to live freely, to love, even to create beauty, just as God had done. But this puts us in a conundrum. If we believe there is an ultimate truth and an ultimate good in the universe, as embodied by God Himself, then we must humbly seek after this truth with all diligence and sacrifice. However, at the same time, we cannot force others to adopt what we ascertain as the truth apart from their free will, or else we have violated the sacred liberty that God has granted to all people. As Thomas Paine wrote, "He that would make his own liberty secure must guard even his enemy from oppression. For if he violates this duty, he establishes a precedent that will reach unto himself." So then, the true path to liberty rests on each of us using our God-given liberty to do two things. Number one, we must seek divine, moral, universal truth as ordained by God with humility, knowing in our humanness that we are prone to error, and yet we cannot yield from our duty to uphold what we believe is true. But number two, we must defend the liberty of those around us to do the same, even if their conclusion about this truth is different than ours, or even wrong. Rather than reasserting our own truth through slander, deceit, meanness, or even violence, we must use reason, sound logic, inspiration, and creativity to show the rightness of our thinking and the wrongness of other ways of thinking. This is not coercion. This is not oppression. It is truth being worked out within the sacred bounds of liberty. So today, when you wave that Star-Spangled Banner, when you eat that extra hot dog. And when you blow things up in the sky, just remember that liberty was not invented by America, but it was recognized as the first gift that God gave us, and therefore we have a divine obligation to defend that liberty for ourselves, for our neighbor, and even for our enemy. Thanks for watching.